Alhamdulillah, assalamu alaikum. So in today's video, inshallah, I'm going to be telling you 3 ways that you can get residency so that you can come and move to Sharjah in the UAE, or for that matter, any other emirate. I'm also going to be telling you towards the end of the video how I personally got my residency. Now, this isn't an exhaustive list. There are many other ways, as I will indicate towards the end of the video. But these are the 3 mainstream ones that I'm aware of and have knowledge of, inshallah. So the first way to get residency here in the UAE is to get a job. Overwhelming majority of employers will provide you with a visa if you get a job to work over here with them. Now, the package that you get may include a variety of other benefits. Some include accommodation, others include a flight back home every year, others will include, transport, some even medical bills and schooling. So depending on your company, depending on your salary package, the benefits that you get in there, you will have a variety of things included. But usually one of them is, of course, residency. Now let's talk about the pros and cons of getting your residency through having a job. So the first pro is that there's very little cost to yourself. Your employer will usually pay for the majority of the costs involved in getting a visa. The second is there's very little effort on your part because your employer, again, will take care of most of the paperwork and all of the issues. All you have to do is just turn up, pass the tests, and of course, get the job in the first place, right? The third benefit is that you will have a stable income. Now, anyone that owns a business knows revenue goes up and down. Whereas with the job, you could lose your job. That's one thing to consider, and we'll talk about that in the cons. But generally speaking, you're expecting the same amount of money at the end of each month, so you can budget a lot easier. And obviously, budgeting is something I would highly, highly recommend if you are planning to move out here. Now, let's talk about the cons. The first and most prevalent and primary con is that your visa is connected to your job. You lose your job, you lose your visa. And there is a grace period of a couple of months, if I'm not mistaken. It may vary depending on your nationality and other factors, but you can stay here for, I think it's about 3 months. I might be wrong, but you can search that all up online. And if you manage to secure a job in that time period, amazing, you can continue to stay here. I know that brothers that has actually happened to, but if you don't, then you're gonna have to leave. And obviously that's not an ideal situation that anybody would want to be in. Another con is actually getting a job here can be quite difficult. Places usually want some type of a qualification, although that's less important, I'm hearing these days. But experience is extremely important. And they will say minimum 2 years experience, but a lot of places, again, just from anecdotal experience, I never applied for a job, but I know brothers that are recruiters, they mention that they're looking for at least 5 to 10 years of experience. And it kind of makes sense. For an entry-level job, they can find someone from South Asia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, who will be willing to do that job for a fraction of the pay that someone living in the West, would be willing or comfortable with. So they would want someone, to justify paying you the salary that you're gonna want, it's gonna have to be a very special role that they can't fulfill easily elsewhere. So that's it for getting a job. Let's now move on to number 2. So the second way to get residency and live here in the UAE is to purchase property. Now, how much do I need to buy? Well, there are 2 different types of visas that you can get through purchasing property. The first one is if you buy a property that has a value of over 750,000 dirhams. I believe it's about 180, 190,000 pounds. You will then be entitled to a 2-year renewable visa. When I say renewable, what I mean is every 2 years, as long as your property portfolio value doesn't drop below 750,000 dirhams, you can continue to indefinitely renew your visa, unless of course they were to change the laws here. But that, as per the current laws, that's how you can live here and get your residency. So now let's talk about the pros. Well, the first pro, compared to obviously being here under a job visa, is that you are in control, of course, Allah first and foremost, but then you are in control of your residency. As long as you maintain that property portfolio value, you can continue to renew your residency indefinitely, like I said, unless of course the law changes, the threshold changes, but for now, that is the rule. Now let's talk about some of the cons. Well, the most obvious one is you would need at least 750,000 dirhams in order to get this option. There are halal mortgages here, although in complete honesty, I would advise you do your research, speak to a person of knowledge, present each one to them. I've personally looked and I've struggled to find someone that is more than halal on paper, if you get my gist, right? There are some options, like for example, through there's a company called Ansar Properties. You can buy directly from the developer in installments, so it's not a mortgage, you're just buying directly in installments, but the installments are a lot higher, and they remove all of the haram clauses, the late payment fees and anything riba related or any other haram. They, alhamdulillah, have removed it. and I know the brothers very, very well, as I'll mention towards the end of this video, inshallah. But that's one option, right? But again, it will still require a lot of money. A 20% down payment is still a significant amount of money, and then you're paying like 1% of the property value per year, or 2%, 3%, whatever it might be. The bottom line is it's a 2 to 3, maybe 4 or 5 year max payment plan, whereas a traditional mortgage obviously would be 20, 30 years, maybe even longer, so your payments would be a lot lower. So this would require a lot of money, or a very high significant cash flow, and not everyone has access to that. The other visa that you can get is a 10-year golden visa if the property that you're purchasing has a value of 2 million dirhams or more, which is I think around 450-ish thousand pounds. And then you are eligible for 10-year renewable golden visa. Again, same thing applies. You just renew it every 10 years, as long as obviously the rules don't change and the threshold doesn't change, and you maintain that property portfolio value. Now let's come to the third and final in this list way of getting residency here in the UAE. And by the way, this is also the way that I personally got my residency, and that is to open up a company, register a company here. Now, what does that involve? How can one do so? Well, it's a pretty straightforward process. The first pro is that it's relatively affordable, right? It will cost you in the region between, let's say, £4,000 to £8,000, depending on whether it's a mainland company, a free zone company, which emirate you set it up in, and there's a whole host of features and how many visas you need, and so on and so forth. And depending on which company you go with, there's a lot of different variables. But let's just say between three to four to, let's just say, £8,000-9,000. For some, that is affordable. For others, it's not. For some, definitely compared to buying a property, it's a lot more affordable. So that's the initial setup fee, and then it will cost you around £3,000 to £5,000 every year to renew that company license, and you will get a 2-year renewable residency, the same one you would get if you bought a property for £750,000. The difference here is your company that you set up, it doesn't even actually have to trade. It doesn't even actually need a bank account. You literally can just set up a company. We call it a paper company, and you could be working a remote job online. I know brothers that do that. They have a remote job online and they've just come here, set up a company, and they're living here through that. Or you could have a physical brick and mortar business in the West, in another country that doesn't require your physical presence. So the income from there is allowing you to survive, and you just come here, set up a company, get residency, and live here. That's one way to do it. Of course, if you do decide to actually trade with a company here, there are many benefits that come with that. For example, zero tax. If you set up in a free zone, there's no VAT tax on you. You will be liable for corporation tax, which is 9%. But then again, you need to remember that income tax is 0%. So anyone that knows the world of finance and accounting will know what that means. Like, there are very legal ways to very much reduce or even completely zero your corporation tax liability. And of course, I'm talking about a free zone company. There are, certain limitations with the free zone company compared to a mainland company. But if you want more information on that, you can contact Ansar Consultants, the same brothers that run Ansar Properties. They have a consultancy where they help people set up. We use them. I mean, it's a long story. The second time around, we used them. First time around, we got bumped. We went for a cheap option on Google. It's a long story, but the bottom line is they are trustworthy brothers. I know many brothers that have used them. We've used them ourselves personally, alhamdulillah, and never had any issues with them. The cons of setting up your own company are, well, first and foremost, this might actually be considered expensive for some people. So it's not affordable for every single person, which is why I mentioned at the beginning, it's relatively or subjectively affordable. And another con, which I've kind of alluded to as well, is if you don't take the right company to help you set up, you could end up spending a lot more money than you initially expected. That happened to us. We went for a cheaper option on Google, and we actually ended up spending, I think, maybe 20 to 30, maybe even 40,000 dirhams overall in extra fees and costs just to be able to get residency. And it's something so simple, so easy. When we spoke to the Ansar brothers, they said, Wallahi, had you come to us, that wouldn't have happened. You should have just paid the extra money. And now, looking back at it, we should have paid the extra money and got that done. So there you have it. Those are the three, again, main ways. I didn't include ways like marrying an Emirati. There are, again, many conditions and nuances related to that. Freelancer visas and other things like that. Because, number one, I don't have enough knowledge about them where I would feel comfortable to speak about them. And number two, I would say they're not really accessible for most people in most situations. These are the three mainstream ones that I would say majority of people watching this would fall into one of these categories. So with that said, my personal recommendation, in my opinion, the easiest and best way to do it is to go through and set up a business. That's what we did. That's why I'm talking to you from my own experience. And I would highly, highly recommend, if you are going to do it, go through Ansar Consultants. Salafi brothers, practicing Muslim brothers, they won't mess you around. Their customer service, I'm only comparing them to the other company that we went with, right? Headache, nightmare. The person that you're speaking to changes every flipping few months, and they just take ages to reply, and they made so many mistakes that cost us money, but we couldn't say anything to them. It was just so jarring. And we still have that company. We actually set up a second company just because of the hassle and headache that we were getting from the first company. And alhamdulillah, we've never had a single issue with them. Like I said, I know many brothers that have set up with them. To be completely transparent, no, this is not an ad. They're not paying me to say this. However, to be extremely transparent, they are, well, recently, alhamdulillah, just this month in August 2024, they became one of our clients at Righteous and Rich Scale, which is our, top-end product where we basically come in for six-figure businesses and help them scale. So this isn't part of that, however. I just want to make that clear in case you see us, publicly working with them and promoting them and doing other things. This has nothing to do with that. This is just me genuinely, honestly referring my brothers who have become very good friends of mine. And, alhamdulillah, now they're our clients as well, alhamdulillah. So I thought I had to just mention that for transparency. In case someone says, oh, there's a conflict of interest there or whatever. Wallahi, I swear by Allah, I would have recommended them if we had nothing to do with them at all, except for the fact that we went through them. I would still recommend them. So I'll leave their details in the description, inshallah, in the pinned comment, if you want to use them to either buy a property here in a completely halal way, riba-free, interest-free. If you want to set up a company here, completely, you can do that, inshallah. And also, by the way, if you are interested in our Righteous and Rich Scale, you're a six-figure business and you're earning around $10K a month, inshallah, and look at the scale from setting up your funnels and everything else that's involved, sales, marketing, strategy, offer, we are happy to serve you, inshallah. There'll be a link in the description for that also, and maybe inshallah that could be a means for you to also inshallah one day do hijrah. With that said, I'll see you guys in another video. The next one I'm thinking to do is on the cost of living. That's been one of the most in-demand videos. I've just been really busy, so yeah, inshallah, I'm thinking to do that. Let me know what you think in the comments. And of course, don't forget, if you want to rent a car when you're here in the UAE, like this wonderful Urus that alhamdulillah Allah has given me the privilege of being inside of, then make sure you contact Premier Supercars Dubai. I'll see you in the next video. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum.